Very much, and thank you for giving me an opportunity to be here to thank you for what you do for the state of Texas and for this country, and for keeping information free. Net neutrality ought to be something that anyone running for federal office ought to be 100% for, 100% dedicated to, so that whoever decides to blog, whether it is one guy that wakes up one morning and decides he wants to be a blogger, or somebody that's a large institutional enterprise, ought to have the same kind of access. And as a United States Senator, I want to make sure that happens. Let's also have another trivia question. Who was the first state agency in the United States of America to have a website? That was the Comptroller of Public Accounts in 1991 under John Sharp. The very first state agency in the United States of America to have a website. So we know a little something about all of this as well. I want to talk to you about why we're in the mess we're in this country. We're in the mess we're in for the last 12 years. We have had a group of people that have had total control of this country, that have forgotten what made this country great. We've had a group of people who have decided that when all of the tax breaks are passed out in Washington, D.C., they are to be passed out to the executives of Ford Motor Company, to the investors of Ford Motor Company, to Ford Motor Company itself. And they think, the Republican Party does, that by doing that, that all of a sudden assures Ford Motor Company of prosperity, but now they've learned different. But the Democratic Party, for the last 3/4 of a century, through Sam Rayburn, through Lyndon Johnson and others, has taught us that it is the middle class that makes Ford Motor Company good. That if you want to give tax breaks, you give the tax breaks to the middle class, and if there are a hell of a lot of people that can afford Ford F-150s, Ford's going to do good. If there's a lot of people in the middle class that can afford washers and dryers, General Electric is going to do good. The reason we're in this mess is real simple, and that is that the folks that got in charge of Washington, D.C. forgot about the middle class. The reason the Democratic Party was the dominant party for 3/4 of the last century was because we cared about three things: working families, and working families. And that's what we have to restore. And we have to restore it through Washington, D.C. and making sure that when there are things that are passed out, whether it is cheaper tuition, whether it is cheaper taxes or whatever, that those things are passed out to middle class Texans and middle class Americans.